should be like you, Melvin.
Ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Hello and welcome back to Up the Cherries in all departments for our season review of the 2024-25 season. And as you can see, I'm joined by some very familiar faces. And let's introduce in reverse order. First of all, welcome Malcolm. How you doing?
Hi guys, all good here, thanks.
Yeah, happy days. And Ollie, how are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Matt. Thanks to be back.
Yeah, nice to have you back. Nice to have both of you back. And of course, in the same shirt as he was in this morning, it's Mr. Beasley.
How you doing, Matt? Good to be on the show again. And yeah, after what has been quite an eventful day, to be fair.
An eventful day, indeed. What do I dare ask why?
Well, hang on. That's not good.
Oh right,
yes. Yes. I better not get so stressed. I just need to chill out, maybe,
Well,
but yeah, this will chill me out.
I'm sure this nostalgia will chill you out a little bit.
Exactly.
But yeah, of course, like I just said, we're going to review the 2024-25 season, and let's get cracking. No better place to start really than probably just having a brief look at where we finished the season before. So obviously Andoni Iraola's debut season at the club, Premier League finish of 12th, 7 home wins. We had 6 away wins as well. So it wasn't a bad season. Obviously, we had Big Dom up front, who was banging in the goals, 19 in the league, 2 in the cup. Our biggest win was at home that season, a 5-0 win against Swansea. And then, of course, unfortunately, our biggest defeat came against City. But all in all, just very briefly, Craig, I'll let you touch on it very briefly, Craig.
Yeah,
Iraola's first season he wasn't his biggest fan at the beginning, but then his biggest fan towards the end.
Do you know what? I think, his style of football was always right. I always questioned whether or not we had the personnel and whether or not he was adaptable at the start of the season. And it looked like he possibly wasn't going to be the fit. However, he persisted and he got there. And, it was an absolutely fantastic season that really culminated in some fantastic performances. Of course, we can talk about the Manchester United win, being right up there. The FA Cup win against Swansea, 5-0, but there were some real memorable moments. And it was just that intensity that it kind of all come together right at the very right time. I think personally he proved me wrong. He proved probably quite a lot of people wrong actually who doubted him first. a very, very good debut season in the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. And let's take a look at last season's pre-season. So obviously 2024. We obviously went out to the USA.
Yep.
We played Wrexham. We played Arsenal out there. Both ended in draws, and obviously we had the penalty shootout defeat to Arsenal, and then it was back to the Vitality, and it was quite interesting that we played Mr. Iriola's previous club.
Yes.
It was. I don't remember going to that one. I think I went to the. I can't remember, but anyway.
No, we was there. We was there, Matt.
Yeah, oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
very
it
much.
wasn't a spectacle, to be honest.
No. But Malcolm, last pre-season, did you, looking back at it, we obviously prepped well.
Yeah, it's. I think obviously from last season moving on, we're finishing where we did. A lot of expectation going into this 24-5 season. Obviously, just really positive thoughts and seeing step up. Where is the next step up? What can we do? What can we achieve? Unbelievable, really. So with pre-season, I did catch some of it, but it's okay. They go to America and they buy so many players, and it's just getting your fitness really in there. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I never read into pre-season friendlies or anything. It's just getting them tuned up, ready for the big off.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, definitely, and some decent prep there, obviously by the guys, obviously for the season. But let's have a quick look at the transfer window. So very, very active transfer window. I'll come to you, Ollie, on this one. What did you think of the transfer window last summer?
I mean, how can we complain, right? You're looking at names in there that have really seen us right this season. Dean Hodgson, obviously now going for 50 million. That's still a massive sporting business move for Bournemouth in a sense. Evan Nilsson staying on board, big money, but he's pulled it out of the bag in a number of instances where we've needed him to. Kepa now wanting to stay. Look, we're building a fantastic team. Even the likes of Jebison coming on at times this season has really, kind of infatuated our game a little bit more with some speed and attack on the pitch. Can't complain. Can't complain at the transfer window. Not as excited about this one coming up, I'll be honest. But
no, totally. I don't think any of us are really looking forward to this one. But in terms of obviously losing Dom, I mean the recruitment department did an excellent job in discovering Evan Nilsson, didn't they?
Yeah, 100%. And I think again the money that we got for Dom is fantastic, really. 65 million, that nobody can turn their nose up at that amount of money. He did perform incredibly well 23, 24 and has been a performer for us in previous seasons, but he got his opportunity and his time was to move on, and it seems that with the vision of the club at the moment, the recruitment team, the backing of Bill Foley, we seem to have something else going for us now that seems a little bit bigger than Dom Solanke maybe.
Yeah, no, definitely couldn't agree more. But there's the transfers in and out from the summer window. Just seems so long ago. Where have we gone?
Oh, Gremlins.
But yeah, let's get straight on with it. So this is the games that we started the season with: August, September, and October. We haven't got the cup games in this episode. We may do a little round off of the cup runs. Cup run, should I say? In another show. But August, September, and October. Then obviously we started the season at the City Ground at Nottingham Forest, where we drew 1-1. Then it was back home to the Vitality, where we played Eddie Howe's Newcastle in our centenary match, celebrating our 125th year. It was a great day at the ground. Shame about the result, obviously, and a spoil that happened, which we'll discuss a little bit later on. Then we had the Everton game, which was at the time set to be our last game at Goodison, and that epic 3-2 win when we sort of looked pretty dead and buried up until the last sort of 10 minutes. But we'll touch on that one a bit more shortly. Then it was back to Dean Court in September, where we played Chelsea in a frustrating 1-0 defeat before heading to Anfield, where the champions elect, well, they're champions now, aren't they? Beat us quite convincingly 3-0. Back to Dean Court for the M27 derby. I know Saints fans don't like to call it a local derby today, but yeah, the M27 derby, as we kind of nicknamed it. Bournemouth winning 3-1. Away to Leicester, difficult. Well, it wasn't a difficult game from what I can remember, but a quite frustrating 1-0 defeat until we beat the Gunners at home. And then we travelled to Villa Park and grabbed a point there in a 1-1 draw. So we're going to look at these games, the games that are highlighted in yellow, in a little bit more detail. And of course, that means we're going to start off with the epic game at Goodison Park. And Malcolm, this one, like I say, we looked pretty much dead and buried. I think was it like the 82nd minute where we seemed to come alive? Was it sometime around then? But yeah, great comeback.
Oh, really? Yeah, the first half we didn't get going, to be honest with you. In fact, even going into the second half, from a Cherries fans' point of view, yeah, quite disappointing how things were working out, and then going one down, I think, okay, here we go again, and then come a second goal, and probably most of us thought that was going to be it. We just couldn't get any sort of rhythm going. Yes, we do have the occasional chance come and go, but we weren't fluent enough. But we made some changes. So just after the hour, 3 changes, and then I think Everton quite happy to sort of sit back with what they got, and bearing in mind that their position at the time, and also with their fans, they're very aware of, if teams do get 1 goal back, they have this fear of conceding, and it was just, I suppose, fitting really that once Semenyo got the goal, here we go, let's push on. And I think the biggest mistake Everton made was actually taking their best player off the field.
Yes.
And once he came off, it just, everything opened up, and it was more or less sort of just one-way football. There's only one team that's going to score. It was just a question of when. But for the 3 goals to actually come from the 87th minute, it is unbelievable. Obviously, as a Cherries fan, you're going to be really, really happy with it. Even for the travelling fans, they must have been absolutely delighted. But you couldn't see it coming. That was the thing. You just could not see it coming. The Bournemouth were pretty poor, but then they found their gear. And that is just, I suppose, down to Andoni. He can bring players on for a strong finish, and try and change games. The game goes to the final whistle, and you just keep going, plugging away. And after the equaliser, Pickford actually kept them in it even more, didn't he? I mean, some blinding saves in the injury time before the final one went in. Can you say it was deserved? I suppose, yeah. You've got to fight for it, and take your chances, and then that's it. But I mean, Everton fans, they must have been absolutely in despair, because they were 2-0 up and cruising, and you couldn't see any way back for Bournemouth.
No.
But that's probably why we love football so much, isn't it?
if a game's just exactly like this, yeah, definitely. And I do remember seeing the celebrations on the bench, which is sort of captured there, and the header from Lewis Cook, and it was an unbelievable, very short period of time at the end of the game there, wasn't it? And it's sort of kind of kick-started a very special season. But let's have a quick look at the next highlighted game, which is the 3-1 win against the Saints at home. This one I do remember saying to, I think probably yourself, Craig, how key I thought this game was for Evan Nielsen to get off the mark, just to build a bit of confidence. But Ollie, what's your memories of this one?
Yeah, so this was actually quite a big game for me because not only did I go to it and watch it, it was also our first home win, which I thought took a long time to get to. I think considering, again, games that I went to, the Newcastle game at the start, second game of the season, and the West Ham games shortly after that. We'll come back to both of those in VAR shortly, but we were robbed of some wins there. This win was a big one for me. And we secured it with a super dominant first half. What was it? 17, 32 and 39, I think we scored in. Evan Nielsen, Dango and Semenyo. Unreal game. They ended up clawing back a lot of their stats in the second half. They ended up having way more passes than us, way more tackles than us, way more possession than us in the second half, and clawed back a goal, I think, around the 70th minute, if I'm not mistaken. But for me, that was a good one to come away from and to think, crikey, we've got our first win. Evan Nielsen's off the mark. We're onto a big game here. I feel there was a big feeling that came from that game,
Yeah, no, massively. Yeah, definitely. And another game where we had quite a big feeling, Craig.
Yes.
Was this one. Obviously, there was a bit of controversy, wasn't there, with the red card. But probably one of the best set pieces from a corner. You can argue in some respects maybe ever seen.
Most definitely. Let's just quickly touch on the thing that Arsenal fans were whinging about tomorrow. Of course, Saliba was shown his marching orders after 30 minutes. To be perfectly honest, we were in the ascendancy before that time. We were much the better side, and hey, Saliba's red card, it was just desserts. And then, of course, that moment of brilliance, and of course Ryan Christie grabbing his goal before Justin Kluivert capped off what was an absolutely phenomenal performance. It was such a shame that Arsenal fans did paint it that it was their fault, because Saliba was sent off, rather than turning around and saying we were beaten by much the better side, which Bournemouth were. We were much the better side on this game. We deserved our 2-0 win. It could have been more.
Definitely could have been more. From what I can remember, I just thought it was a fantastic performance that day. The actual set piece though is something that really stands out for me, and no matter how many times I see it, I just think it's just a stroke of genius.
Oh yeah, it was unbelievable, an unbelievable goal. It's one of the. Would you say it's up there with the Charlie Daniels goal? Probably is, to be honest. The Charlie Daniels goal that was against Man City, that was very special. It was a bit of different, but at the same time, we've been treated to some real good goals, but that is right up there.
Yeah, been some excellent masterclasses this season in set pieces, isn't there? But let's take a look at the months of November and December then. So we had a 3-2 defeat away at Brentford, a game that we were unlucky really not to probably steal a point from. And then at home to Brighton, we also had a 2-1 defeat. But on that day, I thought their manager pretty much had us tactically sussed, I thought, on that day. And then we had the 4-2 win away at Wolves, which we'll touch on a little bit more detail shortly, and then followed by the home win to Tottenham. We'll touch on both of those games in a little bit more detail. Then we travelled to Ipswich. Wasn't a great performance that day, but we did grind out the win before having a draw with West Ham, which Ollie said we're going to touch a little bit more on during the VAR section of this show. And then once again, Old Trafford. Winning at Old Trafford isn't for everybody, is it? And to do it 2 years on the trot, 3-0 wins. A game that we will touch on shortly in more detail before Boxing Day, goalless draw in Palace. Couldn't think of a better way to spend my birthday than watching a much better and entertaining game. But hey ho, before seeing 2024 out with a 2-2 draw at Craven Cottage. So let's take it away then. Malcolm, this one. Me and Craig done a watch along for this one.
We did for this one. Yeah, it was one of Gary's last games, wasn't it?
Yes, Mr. O'Neill, yes. But Malcolm, 3 penalties converted in the same game. I think that is a Premier League
first time ever.
First time ever, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
It's amazing.
3 assists from Evan Nielsen, if you like.
Well, yes, because
he was fouled 3 times, wasn't he? So
he did taunt the goalkeeper. But,
usually had a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you. But wow, what a game! Thoroughly enjoyed it. Certainly deserved the victory. And seeing a bit of history, watching it live on the box, it was like wow. And I don't know if you guys have seen the video on The Rest is Football, but actually this was actually touched on during Kluivert's interview. He was asked about how do you manage to take 3 penalties successfully in one game, and he just kept his cool. Basically, he says he try not to look at the goalkeeper. The first thing, just keep your eye on the ball. He knows what he's going to do beforehand. But nevertheless, it's a pressure situation, isn't it? So, hats off. A good all-round team performance. I mean, Wolves weren't bad, don't get me wrong, but it was the mistakes at the back and the goalkeeper and the defensive mistakes that cost them. So, superb. I would put that up as one of the best, not the best of the season, but certainly one of them. Really excellent result, and happy for Justin for creating a bit of history, and obviously gets the match ball to boot.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those ones that will stick in the memory. But one thing that does stick in the memory for me is, I don't know whether it was the second penalty or the third penalty, but wasn't there a Wolves fan behind the goal lifting his shirt up? And
I think there was actually, yeah, there was something posted out there.
There was, and that could even put off the coolness of Mr. Kluivert there. But sorry, Malcolm, after you.
All I was going to say, was that Gary O'Neill's last game, or did he have another game after that before being pushed out the door?
You might have to ask his number 1 fan that. I don't know.
It wasn't quite his last game. He had 2 more after this, but he was definitely one of the nails going into the coffin this time at Wolves.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like you say, Malcolm, one that will stay in the memory for many years to come. What's going on here? Gremlins again. Gremlins. Yeah, we are on track there with that one, aren't we? Yeah. So Ollie, over to you, buddy, on this one. So Dino scores his first goal for us. He's starting to make an early impression since coming in from the injured Marcus Ness. But this one, over to you.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Matt. Again, for me, another example of Iriola's tactical prowess, right? So just from the set piece, obviously brilliant set piece as it is, dinked in by Dean. no one saw it coming again, completely out of nowhere. And what we've done then is it's been a barrage of constant attacks. I think the final stats were something like 22 or 23 shots from us, and maybe 10 or 12 from Tottenham. Except their possession was, 65 to 70%, and ours was only 30. So it really does tell you the amount of defensive play that we did after the goal we'd got the goal, basically. I think some of the performances that stand out for me are Ryan Christie, I believe, struck the woodwork. And if I remember rightly, Evan Nilsson got a goal disallowed for offside. So it shows that we were pushing the whole time. And again, it just comes back to the high pressing, quick passing, kind of fluid attacking movements that we've somehow impregnated into this team from Iraola. And it's fascinating to watch. And that was one of those games.
Yeah, definitely. It was quite interesting to see Dom come back and, not have a great night. But
we shut him down quite a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of those games that will stay, obviously, again, long in the memory, but another great win. Craig, you get the honour of this one again. Another great win at Old Trafford.
Yep, I watched this one. And as bad as Manchester United were, we were absolutely sizzling this day. We was in complete and utter control. Justin Kluivert was unplayable. Okay, his goal did come from the penalty spot. Dean Howson popped up again with a goal. And of course, my main man, Antoine Semenyo, showed his real strength to get past Manchester United. But again, this is another game where it could have been more. Probably, for different reasons. Arsenal are not a poor side, but we were just brilliant on the day. We were brilliant on this day as well, but Manchester United were woeful. We had them boxed in all match. Onana didn't really know what to do. It looked as if, Manchester United were a relegation fodder, which, let's be fair, they were in the end. But I tell you what, it was a great performance. Big shout out as well to Dango Ouattara for this game as well. I seem to remember him putting in some good crosses in this one, from memory. But yeah, overall an excellent match. And Milos Kerkez as well, solid when Manchester United were coming forwards. They just couldn't get past us. They couldn't actually penetrate our defense at all. That's a word, isn't it? They couldn't penetrate our defense at all. And yeah, it was an outstanding performance. And of course, we mirrored what we did there last season.
Yes, absolutely. Just before we move on, just a couple of people in the chat. Nick Gillins.
Hello, Nick.
How are you doing? Thanks for joining us. And of course, our good friend Tony from Hammers Football TV. Good evening to you, and thank you for
Hello,
joining
Tony.
tonight. It's always good to see you. Always check Tony's channel out. They do a great show called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly on a Wednesday night. So it's a good show. I tune in every now and then. Always good to support other channels. So that brings us to kind of the halfway sort of point. What we'll do now, guys, we'll have a very quick look at the winter transfer window. There was a bit of activity there. Obviously, we made 3 signings. I can't quite remember exactly who went out, every player that went out. But guys, how important is our winter window? Obviously, we know business is difficult during the winter windows, but how important can this transfer window be, especially for clubs like Bournemouth? Whoever wants to go first. Let's go, Ollie.
Yeah, look, I think incredibly important. I think considering the injuries that we experienced, the turbulence for the first couple of games where we should have been winning, and then the upsets against City, where we ended their win streak, all of these things that happened leading up to the transfer window allowed us to kind of get a much better understanding of how our team was going to sit for the second half, right? So I think Julio Soler was definitely an integral purchase just in case. The other two have had some game time, but minimal. I think it leads us to understand a bit better of how we're going to perform for sure.
Yeah. Craig, how
Yeah.
did you rate this window? Because I mean, like Ollie's just touched on there, Soler is definitely a signing for the future, and at 8 million could be probably worth his weight in gold.
It's a typical AFC Bournemouth signing, isn't it, Matt? It's a player that is bought in to actually do a job, not now, but to gradually be worked on by Sean Cooper and the team, and to get to a stage where they can really excel. Ellie Junior Krupi was a good bit of business. I know that Lorient fans won't be particularly very happy with that, but he did go straight back on loan there. Tai Akinboni, we didn't see him much at all, but of course, a decent signing, very much like Soler. But also there was Silcott Dewberry as well, who come in, and
Yes.
these were they're all AFC Bournemouth type signings. They're not signings where they're well-known names. And do you know what? I prefer that. Because at the same time, what we are doing is we're bringing these players in, we're growing them, and then we're selling them on for a profit. You look at Dominic Solanke and his transfer fee in the previous window, in the summer window, his transfer fee pretty much paid for the likes of Dean Howson and co. So I think we even made a bit of change if Spurs had paid all in one go. So it really does show. So yeah, very, very, very exciting. Only shame is that out. Mark Travers going to Middlesbrough on loan. Yeah, he needs game time, but I really like Mark. I want him to be an integral part of AFC Bournemouth. It was a bit gutting for me. But hey, Andoni Areola we trust, and we've got to go with the process. And if Mark Travers isn't fancied by Andoni, hey, who are we to say better?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I echo your thoughts there on Travers. I completely agree. He's a great keeper, but I can see why Iriola did go with Kepa over him. Purely really for the footwork. But Malcolm, there's a player there in Krupi that really excites you going forward, isn't there?
Yes, very much so. I mean, it was brilliant bit of business, actually. They snapped him up and then sent him back to Lorient for the rest of the season. And he just smashing in goals and got promoted. So you can't ask for more. And I just hope that when the season starts, that he will be getting plenty of minutes, even maybe in the starting 11. Who knows? We just have to wait and see. We never know what Andoni's going to come up with. But we trust his process and the sides he picks out, who he puts on the bench. For this young lad, I think he might surprise quite a few people, actually. And I'm really hoping, it's only gut feeling, but some of the big clubs will be taking a good look at him as well, thinking, why didn't we pick him out? So that's my view. But touching on with the winter transfer window, I found it a little bit sort of frustrating. Yes, we were short of numbers, but you just can't get players in just as a stopgap. It's a very expensive business to do that and to get a quality player in. So in a way, it's worked out for the best for us, really. I know people moan and say, well, that cost us Europe and all that. I tell you, on a pinch of salt, but you have to look at it over the whole season. And the winter transfer window for me is not so important. Yes, it can be as a stopgap, but preferably, going to the summer transfer, there's more time and the recruitment, they got the time to pick their players out, go and scout them and everything else, and then take it from there. So that's just my point of view. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. But that's us just there touching on the winter window. Let's get back to the games. So January, February, March, we had some really memorable games there. 4th of January, we kicked off the year with a 1-0 home win against Everton. And then we got a frustrating draw, if I remember rightly. It was that free kick that we gave away, which was converted. I didn't even know he could take free kicks like that, to be honest. But that was a frustrating one, to be fair, when you look back on it. And then we had that epic game at St James's Park there, where we beat Newcastle convincingly 4-1 before coming back home to face Forest, where we pretty much took them apart bit by bit in a 5-0 win. Champions this season, Liverpool, Cumstein Court, convincingly won from what I can remember from that one, before a trip up the M27 to Saints, and a 3-1 win there, which mirrored the home game. A very frustrating one. We did play Wolves twice within a week, once in the league, once in the cup, and losing 1-0 at home in a very, very frustrating game, before a defeat Brighton 2-1. A game that I have highlighted, 2-2 draw at Spurs. A game that, to be fair, I thought our performance was really good on the day, probably did deserve the win, but we'll discuss that one in a little bit more detail. And then another frustrating home game, where Brentford again beat us at Dean Court 2-1. So, guys, again, we'll start the same way as we started last time. Malcolm, the 4-1 win at St James's Park again. Clive gets another hat trick, another great performance by him, but not only that, by the whole team.
Best performance of the season from 1 to 11. Absolutely superb. It was absolute joy to watch. Even when Bruno got the equaliser, it didn't change our match plan. We just kept going as we did. Incredible high press that really caught them out. You look at the lineup, and they were on a really good run anyway. Newcastle up to that point, I can't remember how many games it was, unbeaten. And everybody was talking about Isaac. Top man, top scorer. They didn't give him a sniff. The defensive display was absolutely superb. But like I said, it was 1 to 11. It was a brilliant all-round team performance and top draw. Superb, obviously, for Clive to get a hat-trick. But what really impressed me, Kirk has scored in injury time. He did, 60-yard sprint.
Yes.
To get into that space, and he picked the ball up and just went for it then. That's energy levels that guy must have. Wow. But no, it was a game that you want to see. You dream about games like this, and when they do come along, you just got to take the moment. You can't fault any player. They were all on their game that day. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Sorry, Eddie, but you still can't beat Bournemouth.
Yeah, no, that is very true, Malcolm. But it's also one of those games where, if you had it on DVD, you could easily watch that 90 minutes over and over and over again. Because, like you say, it was, and I would say I probably agree with you on that. It is definitely our best performance of the season. Another great performance of the season. Like I was saying, we completely picked them apart. Ollie, the Forest win. At the time, I remember Ray going to the game thinking, do you know what? If we get a draw today, it's not actually a bad result, because at the time, Forest were pulling out some decent results themselves, weren't they?
Yeah.
But would you have ever imagined us beating these 5-0 on the day?
No, never. And I think what's interesting is I was on Talk Sport today at 3:30. Funnily enough, representing the Cherries, and he was a Nottingham fan, and he mentioned that this was one of the games that they were terrified to travel down to the South Coast for. And then coming down here and losing 5-0 and having to walk back with their hats in their hand, they were astounded, and I think I was astounded too. I think again another. Iraola fundamental, right? High pressing, fluid tactics, hat trick from Batara, who also got man of the match as well. Just a fantastic game to have been a part of, and I think it took our unbeaten record to 11 at that point and put us into 6th or 7th position. So how much more exciting could it have got when we were racking up those goals? 2 in the first half, 3 in the second half. Yeah, an unbelievable game to have fallen in line with the games that followed through that part of the season, and incredibly exciting to have been a part of, to be fair.
Yeah, I couldn't echo those words anymore. Craig, the M27 derby then, Mr. Mansell, they're looking like he's in a bit of a flap. They were they were pretty much dead and buried by then, weren't they? But we did kind of expect the win here, didn't we?
They were going for the Derby County record at this point. Unfortunately, thanks to Man City and thanks to West Ham United, Derby still hold that record and not Southampton. It was mightily close, but this performance was a complete performance over our nearest and dearest neighbours. I do feel that Southampton upped their game a little bit against us in this match. I do feel that they tried different things. However, we was just too powerful for them. We was in the ascendancy straight from the off. If you remember, Dango scored that goal. I think it was about after a quarter of an hour, and then we straight away scored again. And we never looked back. The only disappointment was that kind of we let them back into it towards the end. They were fighting, they were battling Southampton in this match. They probably showed more battle than they did all season. But we come out trumps. We capped it off at the end. Marcus Tavernier scoring that final goal to cap off what is a fantastic performance. And Saints were going championship all season. And Mr. Ryan Fraser, of course, was nowhere to be seen, actually, if I remember correctly, in this match. He was even dropped by them. And to be honest, they're saying something when considering how shite they were.
Oh well, never mind. Right, moving
swiftly on. Sorry, Ryan.
Moving swiftly on. This one here. I'm going to come to both Malcolm and Ollie on this one. I thought the performance was really good on this one, and if I remember rightly, there was a fantastic cross by Kirkes. I think the image is there where Tavernier is finishing, that he put in this wonderful cross on the left-hand side. But I just thought, we were unlucky not to get something at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But Malcolm, I'll let you, or Ollie, whichever one of you wants to go first, but both give us your opinion.
Yeah. So again, a game that sticks out for me, annoyingly. There's a lot of games this season that created frustration and irritation because we shouldn't have let the goals in that we did, and we should have scored and made the most of opportunities that we had, right? And I'm pretty sure that 3 or 4 chances Tavernier had before this goal went in. And they were all very close, and they were all slight mistakes that Tavernier made, slight mistakes from a cross that he could have done slightly earlier. A couple of things that, had he have had his head on before that goal, we would have made the most out of our opportunities, and we could have been 4-2 again on that game. So yes, it's that for me, actually, when we were looking at, or when the conversation comes up about games that we should have won, that cost us certain things this season, this comes up for me.
Yeah, definitely. Malcolm.
I can't add anything to it. I was sat on a train going from Birmingham to Manchester at the time.
Well, great, go for it. Go on. We always know you like to have a chat.
Oh yeah, this was bloody frustrating, to be perfectly honest. It was a game where we deserved to win. It was a game we was in complete ascendancy. It was a game where we let them back in this match. And yeah, we did deserve the 3 points. It could have been more to Bournemouth. It should have been more to Bournemouth. But yeah, unfortunately, Spurs just got back in this one. I would say this is probably the best performance of the season where we didn't get our just deserves. And yeah, a real frustration because, of course, Spurs were trying to create a new record of trying to catch Ipswich. Of course, going the wrong way rather than the right way. But yeah. It would deserve so much more. This, Spurs on a normal season would have been relegated.
Yeah, and so would another very big club, I think, as well. If the other three went so bad, they say. Well, that's a fair choice of words, to be fair.
Crazy that they were both in the final as well of a large tournament.
yeah, it's amazing to think you can finish 16th, 17th in the Premier League and
it
still...
was really who's the least shite final, wasn't it? Let's be fair. That's what they were competing for. That's what the trophy should have been. Manchester United, was declared the worthy winner of the worst team, in the league apart from Ipswich, Leicester, and of course Southampton.
It was like watching one of those Scottish Premier League relegation playoffs or whatever it is they do.
Oh no, it was worse than that. I think it was the low league versus the Highland League game. That would have been more entertaining. Go up to Branksome Rec, you would have found a better game than Manchester United versus Spurs in the Europa League final. It wasn't very good advert, was it, for English football?
Well, yes, that's good to hear your views on this one, and Ollie, I do agree with you actually in terms of one of those games that which we're looking back at maybe where we dropped points where we should have got points a little bit later on. I think you've got a good case for this one. Let's have a look at April and May then, the tail end of the season now. April wasn't the greatest of months for us. We had that 2-1 home defeat against now relegated Ipswich before a 2-2 draw away at West Ham. And at that one, I do remember at times thinking that, we could have... At times I thought we were lucky to get the draw. And at times I think we could have won. It was a funny old game, that one. At home, we did scrape the 1-0 win against Fulham before another goalless draw with FA Cup winners Palace. And then back home to a 1-1 draw against United, which we'll touch on a little bit more when we look at the VAR. Arsenal, great to get our first win at the Emirates, which we'll touch on in a little bit more detail shortly, before a defeat at home to Champions League chasing Villa. And then we had to go and play City, probably at the worst time on the back of a cup defeat, considering they've had a potless season. So it's probably not the best time to play them. Probably would have been better to play them if they'd won it, to be fair. Before finishing the season with a 2-0 win against Leicester City. Now, this one, we've only got one game highlighted here, which, of course, is the Arsenal game.
We got an extra goal there. We got an extra goal, but
we'll take one.
There as well, yes. Yeah. Ignore that at the top. Ignore that. But just very, very quickly, Malcolm, this one, obviously the 2-1 win there. Why I've put 3 there, I don't know. I think I've copied and pasted off something else. But done the double over the Gunners and the first win at the Emirates finally.
Yes, broken the duck there. Excellent. What can you say? Arsenal, they deserved their halftime lead. Declan Rice. It was the only time really I actually sort of put anything decent together. There was something wasn't right. This was their Champions League game, wasn't it? Before Paris Saint-Germain. So, there was a lot of speculation beforehand, what sort of side are they going to put out? Are they going to put, not a top team out and everything else? But I mean, they didn't look so sort of, top of the league first half, how they're playing. And okay, you have to battle on. Second half, obviously, it was totally different. Once the subs came on, really, it's our friend Mr. Semenyo came on and launched something long with his wonderful throw for Dino. Superb. But the Arsenal defence was so static. Nobody wanted to go for it. And, you just got to take that opportunity when it comes along. And then it was a bit of a scramble for Evan Nielsen's winner. But I think over 90 minutes, thoroughly deserved the 3 points. And actually wonderful to do a double against, a top 6 club, as they say, or they like to say.
Yeah.
So, but I was a little bit disappointed with Arsenal. Odegaard hasn't had the best of seasons, and he did look a little bit off his game against us. But nevertheless, they've got to show up.
Yeah.
And as proved in a reverse fixture at home, Arsenal just didn't show up at all. We made them look very ordinary. So, good. Good to see us get a nice scalp. Yeah, excellent. 3 points. Happy days.
Yeah. Well, that's a breakdown of the season. Obviously, we haven't discussed every single game, but there's games we have touched on throughout. But there's one game we haven't touched on yet, which we're going to touch on now. And the reason why we're going to do that is because I want you all to have a chat on this one, because it was a long time coming, but we did have that first win against Manchester City. 2-1 at home. Well, I mean, I'll start very quickly. I'll let you guys talk about the game, but I do remember having a good feeling about this and thinking it is about time we have beaten City. And I remember going to the ground and the game feeling quite optimistic this time, rather than feeling, it's going to be a really difficult one. And this was kind of then when they started kind of their downfall this season, I think, after this defeat, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Let's start with Ollie. Let's go backwards. Ollie, 2-1 win against City. Long time coming, like I just said. But in terms of the actual game performance, how would you rate it?
So I actually have to take Malcolm's stance on this. It was one where I was stuck on a flight. So I missed the game in person. I had to catch highlights after, unfortunately. And in actual fact, the reason I remember the day is because I celebrated when I got off the plane, and I was in Benidorm. And, it's obviously not the best place to be celebrating as a Bournemouth fan when there's many more Manchester supporters there. So it wasn't the biggest celebration. But if someone else wants to jump in here, that'd be much appreciated.
On then, Mal, over to you, mate.
What shall I say? Awesome.
You're going to say you were on the train then.
No. I mean, I sat and watched it here, and as you mentioned, you had a good feeling about it before the game, and as the game went on, I was thinking, there's no way we're going to throw this away. We got the 2-0 lead, and with Manchester City and Pep, that they will come at you and they will throw everything at you. But our defence is superb. We had a bit of good fortune. A superb header for the Man City goal. Take that nothing away from that. It was absolutely brilliant. And Mark Travers was in goal, wasn't he? Got a hand to it, but just couldn't keep it out. It was so precise. Wow. But I wasn't bothered. Normally, you would be, I suppose, a typical Cherries fan. You'd be sitting there, fingernails biting away. Nothing. I was just totally relaxed. I thought we're going to see this through. Yes, they had the opportunity with Haaland hitting the post, but it is what it is. But I felt really good on the day that it was going to happen. My biggest surprise was actually the second goal. It's okay going 1-0 up against City because that can happen, but then to be 2-0 up, and you've got to go here in your head, right? 2-0 against Man City, you're not going to throw that away. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Top draw stuff once again. I mean, it doesn't beat the Newcastle game, but I suppose for the home game, you've got to say that's got to be the top one, if you like. Considering who it was, and oddly enough, that was, like you said, Matt, the start of their crumbling, if you like. They went on a really, really bad run after that. So,
yeah.
And
I'm glad you brought up the save there by Mark Travers, because he played in the game previous at Villa away and he made a fair few good saves. I think he pretty much kept us in the game at times. And I do remember after this game thinking, how can you drop him and put Kepa in?
I was about to say, it was a big conversation there with that. Straight after the game, wasn't it? Kepa was in and he had a fantastic game. I do remember that.
Yes, yeah. And like I say, but Mark in those two games last season, I thought just really demonstrated his quality as a goalkeeper. Craig, I know you're.
Yes.
Go on.
Oh, this was, by far, he's got to be right up there. I think City on the day weren't their greatest, but Manchester City as a team have still got tons and tons and tons of quality. We controlled the game. We managed the game well. Mark Travers has already mentioned, that fantastic save right at the end from Haaland. City, we made them look bang average. We made them look bang average, and it was only a late fight back that put us under a little bit of pressure. Otherwise, we was more than comfortable. Antoine Semenyo's goal, sublime. Evan Nielsen, making it 2. Was it Guardiol? Who scored the goal? Yeah, he scored that goal.
Yeah,
it was. It was an unstoppable header. And it needed to be an unstoppable header to actually beat Mark Travers that day. But one of the greatest, results, mainly because we haven't beaten them. I even went back, and when I spoke to Lee Bradbury about it, this is going back a couple of years ago, when I spoke to Lee Bradbury about his games against Manchester City, against Bournemouth, when playing for City, it was always a case of, we couldn't beat them. Or, it didn't matter how bad City were, we couldn't beat them. So it's great to get that one off our back. Just now need to do that with Brentford. Should be easier on paper. But yeah, I think this will last in the memories of people for a long, long time.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it is like you say, it's gonna definitely live on, and it has been a long time coming. But just before we move on, guys, I just want your game of the season, and all I want you to say is the team name and home or away. So your game of the season. Who wants to start?
Go on, I'll go.
Go on.
Nottingham Forest at home.
Newcastle away.
Ollie?
I was also going to go Forest at home, to be honest.
Yeah, see, I'm between the two, Newcastle away and Forest at home.
Are you going to tie it, or are you going to be on our side?
Get off the fence.
I love both of those games this season, so let's tie it. I'll go with Mount.
That's fair.
Newcastle away.
I think Newcastle was absolutely huge, but it was just so unexpected to get Forest at the time that we got them. Just to me, to be able to go, my goodness, look at the run they're on, that they come here and we send them away at 5-0 was just a magnificent moment. A
week later, they went and battered Brighton 7-0.
They did. They're absolutely smashed Brighton.
Crazy.
Well, let's ask this question. Now, this is just a selection of teams I just picked out randomly. A game, sorry, not teams, that I think maybe could we have got something out of that game. I know Ollie's also touched on the Spurs one as well, but which games for you guys did you feel that maybe, I know we had that little run in April, didn't we, where we didn't, I think we had one win, didn't we, in the April, and we didn't pick up as many points as we thought we probably would have picked up that month. So, you could say, was it that month that maybe cost us Europe, or was it a series of games throughout the season? I mean, I'm one of these that says, a game is where you finish is judged across your season, isn't just on any sort of part. So, I mean, any of these games maybe here, or is there any games that you guys think that stand out that you think?
If I may jump in, Matt, I mean, I'm not going to get into Brentford because obviously, as Craig's just brought up, Brentford is a sore subject. It's a tough one to talk about, right? But there are a couple of games apart from that draw at Spurs that stand out for me. One of them is the loss against Wolves in February, 1-0 against Wolves. Just unneeded, no energy or effort in the team, and I think it was exactly the same when we drew against Crystal Palace, as you've already mentioned, around the 20th of April. 2 games there that I just really feel, if we were super serious about getting Europeans, right? Forget the start few games. For Newcastle, we were robbed a little bit at the second game, as mentioned before. There's a couple that come up in conversation, but those 2 this year should have been high focus, go out and win those games. And it's a bit daunting to see that a squad that impresses us so much week on, week out, even when they do lose against big teams, can come out and be that energyless. That is a concern because those are 200% games that we should have won in that time period. So yeah, they stick out for me fairly big.
Excellent point. Craig, you're itching to go. I can see it.
The worst game of the season by far is that one at the bottom. I remember it very, very well because I was on the way to Abu Dhabi, not actually on the plane, but I was up there ready to go to Heathrow. Was sat in Maidenhead watching that game, of all places, Maidenhead. Yeah, very exciting. But moving swiftly on, I wish I hadn't fucking put it on. It was poor. It was absolutely atrocious. I would rather have had a night out in Wetherspoons in Maidenhead than watch that match. It was frustrating. It was so frustrating. The team was devoid of ideas. We looked lethargic. We looked out of energy. And let's be honest, Ipswich were not a very good side. I think, if I'm right in thinking, that was their last win in the Premier League.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Malcolm, what about your opinion on this? Any certain games that stick in your mind that may have cost us Europe?
Well, okay. I mean, you will obviously need to talk about Europe. Highlighting the games there. I think I'll go along with what Ollie said with Newcastle. Got ripped off there. Chelsea away.
Yes.
And even Brentford away, to be honest with you. I mean, that was an excellent game of football. I know we lost 3-2, but we could have got something out of that game.
Yeah.
And then Crystal Palace, for goodness sake, it's like going up against a barn door, isn't it? You just, I mean, they set their stall out, but you have to be a little bit clever to sort of beat these teams. And 2 draws against Palace. Really, you're looking at 4 points against them if you push them for Europe. So, yeah, all in all, but like you say, at the end of the day, you judge over a full season. I'm not disappointed. I'm certainly not disappointed. Obviously, they will look at these fixtures and go back over the stats and everything else, ready going into next season, and see where we can improve. Because they know they can improve, and that's it's progress. So you're not going to win every game. So just take it as it comes for the time being, and we'll just move on, step up the next level, and go for it next season.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a bit disappointing, and there were some a couple of really flat displays. As Craig said, against Ipswich, it's sometimes a little bit painful to watch, because I suppose we've been treated with so much brilliant football over the season, and then to put on a display like that, it is very, very disappointing. But that's football, so.
Yeah, no, totally agree. But just before we move on, guys, there's something from Sky Sports in Italy. Arsenal are considering a deal for Chelsea goalkeeper Kepa. Kepa, who spent last season on loan at Bournemouth, is available for only 5 million because of a release clause in his contract.
Won't happen. No way. Kepa loves it here. He's had a great season. He loves performing.
Yeah.
No chance.
If it's 5 million as well, that's a bargain. We definitely can afford 5 million. So come on, Kepa, get down here, sign that contract.
Yeah. I honestly think, though, with David Raya, why do Arsenal need Kepa? Would Kepa really want to play second fiddle? Most definitely not. He could come here and be number one. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I've criticised him at times. I've always backed Mark Travers, but he is a good goalkeeper, and he's kind of shone a little bit more recently. So if he keeps up that level of performance, I think he can get back to his best, and maybe
four listen to him. They listen to him.
They do, yes.
He's got a voice of control at the back. He differentiates from long balls to short balls to kicks. He's exactly what we need at the moment for Andoni's viewpoint moving forward. If he leaves now, that would be an awful situation.
100%.
You hit the nail on the head there with the communication, because as a defender, there's nothing worse than having a quiet goalkeeper. Right, staying back on track then, probably your favourite moment of this, and that's going to be so there's been some decisions, there's a couple of pictures there, but we haven't got all night, so let's briefly have a word on VAR. There's been some decisions, obviously, from the Newcastle game, which is obviously pictured there, which is still astonishes me now. As well as a couple of challenges there as well. But is VAR ridiculous? Has it been ridiculous for Bournemouth this season? Who wants to go first?
Yes, it bloody well has. And, I've got to be honest, that Newcastle one, of course, the sending off of Evan Nielsen against Manchester United, which was then straight away rescinded. There is no consistency with VAR. Richard Masters is absolutely clueless. He does not know what he's doing. PGMOL should be absolutely disgraced. You've had referees in there, who I honestly, the absolutely clueless David Coote, we can't even go there. I feel sorry for the guy actually now. But yeah, it's an absolute joke. There's zero consistency across the whole thing. It is an absolute joke. How can some teams get away with murder? Other teams can't get away with a slip, like we found against Manchester United. And yes, maybe VAR has cost us Europe. That's what I'm putting it down to, because we should have had those 3 points against Manchester United. Richard Masters, I could say a lot about him, but it won't be very clean, and we might get a 18 rated certificate on the corner. Right, I'll shut up now. Somebody else.
I'm just going to follow that dramatic performance.
Can somebody give Craig his pills now and send him off to his room?
I've already got this today. This is all the stress that it's put me under. The blood pressure monitor. It's like
get out of here.
They turned around and they said, your blood pressure's too high. Well, I didn't actually come to the doctors for that, but now you're saying it, oh, thanks very much.
They want your money. Man. That's what it is.
No, to be honest, the doctor was very clever. Worked out that what was actually wrong was all linked to this as well, blood pressure. So yeah, need to stop getting myself so stressed.
Cool. I'll tell you what, we won't bring up VAR again after this.
No,
Who wants to
point.
take it over? Yeah, I'll shut up.
Malcolm, Ollie.
There was a really interesting stat put up on social media across the whole league. So it's not, it's not just Bournemouth.
Yes, I've seen this. Yeah.
Yeah. What positions the clubs would be if the decisions had been correct?
Yeah, we'd have been sixth.
And we'd have been sixth. There are Craig's who would have had Europe. All right.
There we go. Yeah,
so
see, my point entirely.
Yeah, give him a pat on the back. But no, it's very, very frustrating. Obviously for you guys who go to the stadium, you sat there twiddling your thumbs thinking what's going on. What was the longest one? So 7 to 8 minutes, the Wolves game or something, was it?
Yeah.
So, it was 8 minutes, I think.
Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it drives me bonkers with every decision that comes up, or VAR checking this. Now, if it's a very sort of maybe just an offside, okay, that doesn't take long at all. Normally, automated offside, that should have moved things along, but obviously didn't in every game. The professional footballers being controlled by non-professional officials, in my opinion. It's and I feel sorry for the refs on the field because they're the guys, they have to make these decisions, rightly or wrongly. They're only human like all of us. And yes, if it gets overturned where it's obvious that he is wrong, fine. I don't have a problem with any of it. But when it's not clear and obvious, you've highlighted a couple of tackles there, but not just for Bournemouth, but other games as well. And it's it's spoiling it for me. I'd hope this season would have been, they'd have righted their wrongs from the previous season. It just hasn't happened. Sorry. Yeah. So I'm going to say no more because I don't want my blood pressure to go up.
Final word to you then, Ollie, on this one.
Yeah, look, I think that most of it's been covered right. I think for me, it comes down to old school and new school, right? So before, I remember having a conversation last year with someone about football 15 years ago and 20 years ago and the flair that you'd see and the tactics that weren't really involved in the game and the offsides that weren't really played on so much, and you'd have a really good bloody game of football. And there were a lot of them. And that's how you created lots of good players and lots of good historical moments and lots of good second halves and cup finals, was without technology and without tactics and without all this tomfoolery that I think there is now, essentially. So to me, it goes to, you either have VAR and you move with the times, you keep up with the technology and the AI, or you don't, and you take football back to its grassroots, which I don't think many people will want to do. So again, to kind of stick with the other chaps, I tend to stay out of it. VAR is a bit like politics for me. It's it's one of those things that I just avoid at all costs because there's nothing I can do to change it or affect it, and it will always be decided by a higher power that picks and chooses when he decides. So I'm frustrating.
Yeah.
Well done to Alan as well. This is the problem: is how can you not use VAR for some things? What is at discretion, and then use it for other things? It makes zero sense. The Europeans do it so much better in the Euros. They do it so much better in the World Cup. How can what is the richest league in the world not get VAR right? That sending off for Evan Nielsen against Manchester United was an absolute shambles. It was an absolute shambles.
And I think considering you're on it, it has to bring me back, Matt, to my original VAR point, Newcastle, right? We had the VAR at Newcastle for the handball, which is rightly pictured in front of you, which was a crazy shout. And in the last final moments, which led to a 1-1 draw instead of a 1-0 win on our second game, which should have propelled us to second place at that point in time, right?
Yeah.
The game after was West Ham in the Cup. And we got knocked out in the final moments for something that should have been a goal, but then wasn't. So
Exactly.
there was a goal disallowed from us. So it went against us 2 games in a row because there was no VAR. There was no VAR. So there was no. But the minute you looked at it, or the ref looked at it, or we looked at it in replays, it was very clear there shouldn't have been a goal for West Ham. And because there's no VAR in it, we've lost out against VAR because it was there, and then against VAR because it wasn't there. So it was the 2 most frustrating games to start the season for me.
And you know what? The refereeing standards have gone completely downhill because referees rely on this shite. You know, somebody sat there in Stockley Park looking at a monitor who's not even at Dean Court
Who's a
or
bloody
Old
United
Trafford,
fan.
who's a Man United fan, or David Coote, you know, after, well, no, I'm not even going to go there. But, you know, the
Stop
thing
it,
is,
Craig.
the thing is I saw that, you know, and I messaged you, didn't I, Matt? I said, he's going to send Evan Nilsson off. I said, he's bloody slipped. And everybody, Alan Smith in the Sky Sports studio could see Evan Nilsson slipped, apart from the donkey that was in PGMOL at Stockley Park watching the bloody thing over 25 times. He somehow realised it wasn't.
Think about your blood pressure, mate.
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
There was a couple of others. Obviously,
Yes.
so I know where Cherry's orientated here, but you know, you have to look at Tarkovsky for Everton against Liverpool. You know, how did he not get red? And then you had Joe Linton, who actually scored exactly as Dango did here in this picture. Was it against West Ham? I can't remember. Newcastle played, and that goal was allowed. You know, it just beggars belief. Sorry, but you know, you can mention it. So many instances over a season. Crazy. Okay, carry on, people.
This comment here, is
good comment.
on 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So, you know, they tried disallowing for handball, which they did. And it wasn't. So they went to then try and find an offside that wasn't.
Why are we looking to disallow goals? Why, you know, this is why I would be quite happy with VAR scrapped completely. You know, we might not get every right decision. We might get some go against us, which we would say and watch back and say they're legitimate goals. But the problem is we're relying on technology. This technology here, or technology, you know, nowadays, you know, has to be 100% right, and the technology is still not at full. What is at full is the people operating it. Is the people operating it and getting involved when they shouldn't do. You know, an on-field referee makes a right decision and it's overruled by the wrong one. It's just ridiculous. There needs to be a
ruins
point.
the play of football. Ruins the play of football.
Exactly.
Exactly. Chops it up into an unrealistic, unfluid game like it wasn't before.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head with that.
Do you know what? I've got a great idea how to make VAR more, you know, exciting though from next season.
Pull the plug out.
Yeah, pull the plug out, you know, is my number one option. But if they're going to do it, maybe we need to do it Americanized, you know, VAR sponsored by Sprite, and then, you know, some,
on the
you
big
know,
board.
there's some hula girls in the corner, you know, dancing the right way, you know, somebody dressed as a bottle of Sprite or something like they do, you know, in American NFL. You know, that's what we need. That's what we need. Let's just make it a bit more entertaining.
Let's move off the VAR now. Obviously, we've covered a couple of bits and pieces at our say on it, but I mean, personally, I think VAR should only be used if the on-field referee makes a blatant mistake. But anywho, let's sum this guy's performance up for the season. Again, another great season. You know, like you were saying, we always trusted his football. And obviously his first season, you know, he bedded himself in, got his philosophy across. In his second season, he's made that next step and has improved us. Obviously, on our tier list show at the beginning of the season, we predicted us to finish 10th, and obviously we finished 9th. So, guys, his performance, Ollie, how would you sum up Andoni's performance this season as manager?
Yeah, I'd say I'm going to come back to the famous words I've been using all day. His tactical philosophy and approach to the players that we've had, the situations that we've been in, the substitutions that he's made, the set pieces, the change in club dynamics. So, we were never a club that would be high pressing and quick passing and straight to the first touch. That was never a Bournemouth team, So I have to really sum this up as a work in progress. First season, people thought he was going to struggle. Second season, he's really fallen into it. And it's games like 2-1 against Arsenal that really make you think, those two subs at the end of the game, who was it? Semenyo and Scott, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they both came on and made the difference to both the goals in the second half. It just, the game was turned on its head, and you've got to appreciate the kind of mind that comes from. So yeah, I just think he's had a fantastic season. I think if he can carry this momentum through with the tough recruitment that might come, he's going to be up there with I think one of the best. It's Eddie Howe performances, right? It's Eddie Howe stature at the minute, so it's good.
Excellent. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Malcolm. I'm sure you echo Ollie's thoughts there, but anything
Absolutely.
else you can add to that?
What I'd like to say is that on game days, I'm itching for the starting lineup to come out to see what he's going to be doing, because it's unbelievable. I'm sure you guys who go to the stadium think, what the heck? Why is he left A, B, and C on the bench?
Yeah.
But it's his tactical analysis, and he knows what he's doing. Now he'll either start strong or finish strong, whatever. But he always has a plan B or C within game time. It doesn't have to be maybe, we'll wait till half time. He'll change things and tweak them, and amazing coach. He's stuck to his principles, what he believes in, and he's got the players on board, and that is really, really important. I mean, if you can't get your players on board, you've got no chance. And they're fully supportive. He's got his training staff behind him as well. Top manager. And it came as no surprise that, he was being pushed for maybe a manager of the season. Obviously, he wouldn't get it because of, not finishing the top or whatever. But he's had a manager of the month award or whatever, thoroughly deserved. And he's getting the recognition now. And I'm sure there'll be, this coming season that teams will come down to Dean Court. I'm worried. They won't get an easy game against Andoni's side. So, yeah, superb. And he's just very down to earth. I mean, I love his press conferences as well. Pre-match, very relaxed, and he's sort of somebody you can relate to all the time. He's not distanced with his players. He's got them all on board, and it's just like a family, really. Wonderful. But his know-how and what his beliefs in what he's doing, superb. And we're just so lucky to have him.
Yeah.
To be honest with
you. Yeah. And long may we keep him. Craig, final word with you before we take a quick look at the final table.
To be honest, he's the most important man in that dressing room. I know that we talk about Dean House and Milos Kerkez and Neil Yasmanier. They are a collective. They're very, very good players, individual players. But this man has brought on so many players and improved their games. Look at what Ajax, the chap at Ajax said to me about Justin Kluivert, and where his career was going before he arrived at Bournemouth, and why he shouldn't have left Ajax so soon. He was hoping that he would stay at Bournemouth for years to come, and I hope he does. But Andoni Iraola also has done wonders with the players that were here beforehand. Adam Smith, for example, lost a bit of pace, but what he's done is he's readapted it. So Adam Smith falls a little bit deeper to actually give him a little bit more time to actually make that move. You know, Andoni Iraola has been absolutely fantastic. He's turned uh, Dominic Solanke from a player who, you know, wasn't a laughing stock, you know, as a forward, but, you know, wasn't ever judged as a top forward. He turned him into a top forward so we could actually sell him on for that 65 million. You know, he had a big, big part to play in that. The man is a genius. It took him a bit of time to get going. I feel like an absolute idiot for doubting him at first. It was more probably that the players that we had weren't able to adapt. He helped them adapt. And yeah, long may it continue. You know, he is integral to where we're going. I just hope that Bill Foley makes sure that he's signed up to a very, very long contract moving forwards, and that he is fully invested in this project. So when that new Dean Court, should we call it new Dean Court? No, not really. But, you know, once the expansions is done to Dean Court, he's in charge, you know, in front of an impressive 25,000 seater stadium.
Yeah, fair enough, Craig. Yeah. Guys, just very quickly, I just want a score on Andoni's performance out of 10 for this season. Obviously, recently we've done the player rating show. If you haven't seen it yet, it is on the channel. Do give it a watch where we go through and score each player throughout the season. But Andoni, score out of 10. Craig, go.
8. Main reason was the slightly drop off, but you know, he was there. He was pushing those top teams, the ones that you wouldn't think of, you know, pushing at the top of the league.
Malcolm,
8.5, 8.5.
and Ollie.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go higher than that. It's a strong 9.2 for me because I think the only thing he lacked in was, I think you mentioned it, Malcolm. Sometimes the change in tactics can happen 3, 4, 5 times a game, and I think it reminded me of an old Swindon team I once saw. That I saw them change tactics 8 times in a game once, and ended up losing 6-0. They just seem a bit manic, you know. So sometimes I feel like you can see his cogs going a bit too quick in some games, you know. Yeah, I think he's a
Palio to Canio, was it?
I'm not sure. Don't know. But yeah, 9.2 for me.
Cool, 9.2.
How many are you giving him, Matt?
I'm going to go probably 8.5. 8.5
Okay.
for me. Well, here's the final table just before we wrap up. Here's the final table. Obviously, there we are, Bournemouth in 9th place, which obviously we finished 9th only once before, which is our highest actual position that we finished. But our record points tally is there at 56 points, 15 wins, 11 draws, and 12 defeats. Goal difference of plus 12. It's nice to be in the pluses.
That's right.
Scored 58, conceded 46.
Sorry, Thomas Frank, as well.
Get out of it, Craig.
We can't, like you said, and I think when you look back at this season, like Malcolm said quite a lot, you know, on shows Malcolm's been on with us, we can't complain. I think at the beginning of the season, if anyone said come Christmas we would have been 5th, and you know, been in with a shout of Europe for the majority of the season, you know, I think, you know, some of us may not have believed it, but I think 9th place, 56 points on the board shows good, steady progression. Obviously, Bill has a 5-year plan. We're only sort of coming halfway through it, aren't we, roughly? So, you know, he wanted Europe within 5 years, and we're kind of only sort of 2.5 years through that plan. So, for me, happy. I mean, when you know, if someone asks me my overall thought on the season, I'm very happy with how it went, with some fantastic games along the way that we witnessed. Obviously, getting our first win against the big boys in City, but I'll let each of you guys just sum up the season in one sentence before we wrap up. Now, if that is possible, Craig, please do try, my friend. But I'll tell you what, I'll let you have the final word, Craig. Ollie, sum up the season in one sentence.
Yeah, I just think well done, boys. Well done, boys. Quality effort, quality season. Let's keep going on this trajectory, and I'm still following all the bloody way.
Happy days. Malcolm, how would you sum the season up in one sentence?
Absolute awesomeness. I can't add to that. Brilliant.
To be honest, nice, short and sweet. Right, before we wrap up, Mr. Beasley's going to have the final word on how he's going to sum up our season in one sentence.
No, not a chance.
Not a chance. By far the best season that AFC Bournemouth have ever had, in terms of performances, in terms of the players that we've got to watch this season. Yes, don't get me wrong. There's been some other memorable moments throughout the years. The Great Escape, all for different reasons. That promotion from the Championship, again, different reasons. This was immense. This was us playing with players that, we could dictate our style of football on other teams. It was a case of we could actually decide, and whereas we had to sometimes adapt under Eddie Howe and kind of thwart other teams, this season we just went out all in. We just went all in, I should say, and that's an outstanding season. I think we all remember it for a long time. And yes, at times we got very, very drunk as well.
Did you misunderstand the question?
To be honest, I just kind of ignored the sentence.
In one sentence, I think you said.
Yeah, sorry. Hands up.
I'm just going to say thank you to both Ollie and Malcolm for listening to what I said there, and thank you to Craig.
Yeah, well done, guys.
Anyway, it's been great to obviously look back over the season. It's been great to have all you guys with me to do that. Fantastic. Thank you to everybody in the chat that's joined us, everybody that's watched. Do please check the channel out. We do have a new show called Cherry AM, which has been hosting with Ollie this week, which is going to be a Monday to Friday show at roughly sort of 8 o'clock every day.
It is. You're hosting tomorrow's one, though.
I'm hosting tomorrow as a little guest slot. Yes.
So I'm looking forward to listening to that whilst getting things sorted. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good, and hopefully people are enjoying it.
Yeah. So Cherry AM will be with us every weekday over the summer and well into next season as well. There's also other shows planned for the summer. We're going to have some special cherry pickings with Johnny Blair. There's also going to be some other shows as well. So do keep your eyes peeled. Hit that notification button. Hit the subscribe. Hit the like. Hit everything. We do really appreciate it. But for myself and the boys here, all that's left to say is thank you very much for joining us. It's been a great season. Long may it continue, and let's look forward to the next one. But until the next one,
up the cherries.
Cherries.
Up the cherries.
TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
I should be like you, Melvin.